The B.S. Report is a free-flowing conversation that occasionally touches on mature subjects.
First of all,
this is the B.S. Report with Bill Simmons.
It might be cool, I don't know. And if it's not, I don't care.
The B.S. Report with Bill Simmons.
Bill Simmons works for ESPN. He's also named the sports guy, and he writes a comical sports column. He must be a popular dude.
The B.S. Report.
It's got a real dirty sound, like a rusty steak knife cutting through a well-aged steak.
Now.
Here's Bill Simmons.
Welcome to the B.S. Report. A sunny Monday here in Southern California. Not nearly as hot as it is the rest of the country. I apologize for that. I apologize for being so happy. On the Subway Fresh Take hotline right now from ESPN.com, the Insider Package, Keith Law, and he's going to talk about prospects in the trade deadline because it just feels like this year is very prospect-centric. Keith Law, do you agree?
I do agree. It's good news, I think, because we've had some boring trade deadlines the last couple of years. Yeah, good for me personally. From a selfish perspective, it's good. But also, the trade deadline's boring when no one wants to trade prospects, right?
Right.
I mean, it's been. I feel like the last couple of trade deadlines, it's a big build up. Oh, this guy's going to move, that guy's going to move, all these prospects, and it's a big letdown. We get one major trade. I feel like we could have more than that this year.
Well, there's two different things going on. First of all, the minor leagues just seem loaded with prospects in general. Like Bryce Harper, I don't remember. Is he the first guy who's 18 in Double-A, like ever, or like just like in modern baseball history? I can't remember what that stat was.
Trout was 19 when he got to Double-A, and he's the only other teenager of note I can think of in the last 3-4 years. You know what? I take that back. Fernando Martinez, I think, got to Double-A as a teenager, and then I think that's an arthritic condition, which basically wrecked his career. But he wasn't the level of prospect that these guys, Harper or Trout, are. A teenager in Double-A, readers always ask me, what's too young for league, what's too old for league? Teenager in Double-A, that's young for the league. And that's when they perform like these guys perform, that's unbelievable.
Right. And Trout just homered.
Yeah. First home run. He's got a little power. I mean, I know everyone talks about how fast he is. I don't know if you have seen him. His favorite trick is the little soft liner to the gap, and the outfielder just plays it like a single, and then Trout's sliding into second. But he's strong. He's actually a big kid. It's amazing that he moves as well as he does. It's why he gets comped to Mickey Mantle, another kind of big, strong guy who could really run. But I think Trout's going to be a 20-homer-a-year guy when he gets into his 20s.
Now, Trout's somebody, like when I had my fantasy draft, when we picked the minor leaguers in April 2010, I think Trout went like late in the second round because he's your typical. He must have been like 18 at that point. You know, your tool outfielder guy who you take him, you hope for the upside. Did anybody expect that he was going to be compared to Mickey Mantle, for God's sakes? No. I mean, I saw him that senior year in high school. He was 17. That was the one big thing. The 17-year-old high school senior who's got ability gets pushed up the draft board because there's this recognition he's got the extra year physical development. He's playing against a lot of competition that's older than he is. But, you know, I was there on a Friday. Granted, some guys were seeing college pitchers, but there were like 4 other scouts there. It's shocking how he was sort of under-scouted. And my theory has been it's the Billy Rowell syndrome. Rowell was another position player from the same general area of southern New Jersey, 9th pick in the country, 1 pick ahead of Lincecum, I think, in the 06 draft. And Rowell has sucked. He's just been terrible. He got into pro ball, and it became clear he couldn't hit advanced pitching. Right. And so I think with Trout, everyone said, we don't want to do another Billy Rowell. We don't want to take another cold-weather New Jersey high school kid who can't hit a lick once he gets into pro ball. And obviously that was the wrong decision. Well, and then also with the Angels, they've had a recent history, like the last 7-8 years, of they have these guys, everybody gets all fired up about them. This guy's going to be great. This guy's going to be awesome. And really none of them have panned out. So on the heels of that, all of a sudden they have a guy who didn't get the same hype, and yet he's panning out in a way that, I just can't remember a 19-year-old coming up and, like, doing stuff right away.
Oh, yeah, he's going to be the superstar that Howie Kendrick's finally having a healthy year. But right. Brandon Wood didn't pan out, and Ibar was supposed to be a star, and that obviously hasn't come close to panning out. Kochman. Yeah. Most of those guys didn't work out. And the funny thing is, of course, Trout emerges as the top prospect last year,
And so did Tyler Skaggs, who they then used to get Dan Herron. And at the end of the year, they fired the scouting director who was responsible for getting both those guys into the system.
Is it fair to say that, I would say in the middle of last decade, teams got all excited about, we got to get young arms, we got to get power arms, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But now we've seen that pitchers is just so volatile. And you just never know, and you never know when somebody's arm is going to go out or when somebody's velocity is going to decrease, whatever. It seems like these position players are just much, much, much safer bets. Do you agree?
Yes, absolutely. And the problem for front offices, I mean, I've had GMs and scouting directors express this, is that you take the position player and you know he's pretty safe. You can predict, he's not going to blow out his arm. You can predict health. You can predict performance a little bit better. But the problem is if you don't stockpile power arms, especially in the draft, they fly off the board in the draft. If you don't stockpile those guys, you're never going to get them. So you can take the position player and take one or two and know you got a pretty good chance to get at least an average big leaguer. But if you don't take 5 or 6 power arms and take those guys early in the draft, then you may end up with basically a bunch of soft tossers, fourth starters. So pick your poison. You're going to end up deficient in one area, probably. And what do you want to focus on? You want to just stockpile bats and maybe try to go buy arms at the big league level, or do you want to figure you can buy those bats, maybe get some scrap heap guys, and just keep loading up the system with power arms? And the one thing is, if you have extra arms, you can always trade them. If you have an elite pitching prospect with a big fastball, you can trade him for just about anything you want.
Right. So the 2011 draft happened last month. What were the trends in that draft compared to what was happening in the years before that?
It was the best velocity draft probably in the last 20 years. College and high school just absolutely loaded with hard throwers. And a nice mix of some, more polished college arms as well. Garrett Cole went first overall. He hit 100 on my gun a bunch of times, 101 once. And he wasn't even the best statistical performer on his own team. Trevor Bauer, who went third to Arizona, had a better year. He was the Golden Spikes winner. It's who I actually had a vote. I voted for Bauer over Cole, over Danny Hultzen. And there were a ton of high school kids who were consistently sitting in the low 90s at 18. I mean, it's every 7 days, so they're not going to be at that same level in pro ball when it's every 5th day, but most of those kids you could project would pick up some velocity as they get older. But the flip side is there were very few bats. I'm trying to think, in the top 10, there were 1, 2, 3, I think 4 bats went in the top 10, and one of those guys, 5 bats. One of those guys, though, was basically a signability pick because San Diego had an unprotected pick where they had to sign the player, they'd get nothing for it in the end. So it was a little bit of a stretch. But typically you'd see more position players at the top of the draft because they're safer, and then the arms come second. But first, second, third, fourth picks were all pitchers this year, which is extremely
So that
unusual.
seems to be the trend then.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it was for this year. Now, I've seen a little bit of next year's draft class. I haven't seen everybody yet, or at least not all the elite guys that we know about so far. It's a little more balanced at the high school level, but for the second year in a row, the college position player crop is terrible. And this is a long-term trend. The industry has been signing good high school athletes, just spending late in the draft, starting about 3-4 years ago. Grabbing those guys out of high school means that 3 years later, when the kids who've gone to college are eligible for the draft, there just aren't college position players there. It's a lot of, first baseman, left field types, but the athletic kids, we're grabbing those guys out of high school, and so now the college crop is mostly pitching. This is the second or third year in a row. We just haven't had, I'd say the third year in a row, we're not seeing good college position players. So I
remember that happened in basketball. That happened in the NBA when the run on the high school guys started, and then all of a sudden the college players in the draft sucked.
Right.
Because you were picking these guys too early, almost like you're picking grapes off the vine before the grapes are ready, basically.
Right. But in basketball, it's a 2-round draft, right? So you're grabbing a few of those elite high school guys. In baseball, it's 50 rounds, and there's no hard slotting. There's no cap on how much you can spend in a draft. So the Red Sox are famous for they'll sit there in the 8th round and just grab the best high school player and pay him $500,000 if that's what it takes. So across the board, there's just this whole wave of college position players that doesn't exist now because those guys are getting getting signed into pro ball. We'll see it August 15th, which is when all the kids from this year's draft are going to sign. There's going to be this huge wave of high school guys you've never heard of, and many of whom you'll never hear of again, are going to sign for 6-figure bonuses. Some will get 7-figure bonuses. And the real impact, more than anything else, is that it's going to hurt college baseball because those elite college programs are just not getting the bats that they're used to getting.
We just saw this weekend one of those football guys that got stolen, Desmond Jennings, finally called up. I think he's like 35 years old at this point, but exciting right away. Got on base about 15 times in 2 games.
Yep.
But that's a good example of what was that, like 2005, 2006 when they got him?
Yeah.
And they
like
nurtured him, now he's up.
He was drafted the year before by Cleveland, and they just didn't. It was, I think, over a fairly small amount of money. Went to junior college, and Tampa signed him in the 10th round the next year, just basically betting on an athlete.
Yeah.
And that's really that is a long-term trend. We saw it dipped around the publication of Moneyball and the success of Oakland, where a bunch of teams, and that includes Toronto when I worked there, we just took college players with good stats. And now the industry has shifted back in the other direction in Toronto and even Oakland, Boston, Tampa. They want athletes. Give us the high upside athletes. That's where the stars are going to come from. And we recognize a lot of these guys will never get out of A-ball. But, the success of Jennings, the success of Trout. Trout is a tremendous athlete. That's why teams are looking for these types of players. The recognition that that's where our elite big leaguers are going to come from.
And inadvertently, doesn't that kind of help the problem of how baseball doesn't have enough African American players?
Absolutely.
If you're stealing guys from college football, that's going to help that.
And the problem with college baseball, the NCAA doesn't like baseball clearly because it's not really a revenue sport. So for an entire college baseball team, I think you have 13.5 scholarships, which means most guys on college teams get a half a scholarship or a quarter of a scholarship if they have anything at all. And so that means kids from disadvantaged areas who don't have to be African American, but I think it certainly affects the African American population.
Yeah.
College baseball isn't appealing to them. It's not there for them because they're still going to have to pay so much of their own tuition, which I think is an advantage for baseball that baseball is beginning to exploit. Why would you go to college for a half scholarship or quarter scholarship? We'll pay you $250,000, $500,000. And by the way, if you sign a pro contract, you do get this college scholarship fund if baseball doesn't work out, and you're going to end up getting at least as much towards your tuition in the end, but you'll get to come play pro ball and maybe have a chance to get to the big leagues.
Who are the major league teams? Like, I know the Red Sox are big on this, but what are the other teams that are really splurging on some of these high school athlete guys?
Blue Jays. Blue Jays might spend more in this year's draft than anybody else. Tampa Bay had a lot of extra picks, and they took some slot guys, but they're trying to mix in some athletes. Kansas City and Pittsburgh have both tried to spend quite a bit in the draft. Pittsburgh has gone more for arms, and I'd say they've kind of had mixed success. Kansas City, on the other hand, they've mixed in some high upside position players as well. The Angels and the Dodgers too tend to draft that way, but both clubs have held to slot. And if you're not spending when 20 other teams are spending, you end up at a competitive disadvantage. Not that your scouts aren't identifying the right guys, but you can't pay for them. And this year the Dodgers, because of the ownership mess, were told you have to stick to slot. And so a lot of guys I'm sure they would have liked to have taken had to go right by them because they knew they couldn't afford to sign those guys.
You're right. You update the prospects pretty much like once a month. I think, personally, I could read it every week. I love seeing which guys go up and down. But it's just interesting how much flux there is. Like, you did January 31st, you ranked the prospects. Your number 3 prospect in all of baseball who hadn't been called up yet was Kyle Drabeck, the Toronto pitcher, who now, would he even crack your top 40?
Drabeck was like 12 or 13, 11, 12, 13 coming into the season, and now he's technically still eligible. I don't think did he exhaust his rookie eligibility, but
no.
Even if he hadn't, so say that he was still eligible, I'd have to drop him 20, 30, 40 spots because he can't throw strikes. I think he just had his first or second good start in AAA, which is, granted, Vegas is a crappy place to pitch, but still,
right.
I don't care how good your stuff is. If you're walking 6 guys every 9 innings, we have a problem. So, I can look at him and tell you that's still a potential number 1 starter in there. But, that command isn't even good enough. Toronto's not going to the playoffs. They had every reason to just let Drabeck pitch and decided that they couldn't live with him and it wasn't helping his development. He was struggling to get out of the first or second inning. It's like, totally
on the flip side, on the flip side, your last list, which was a couple weeks ago, your number 4 prospect in all of baseball is somebody on the Cardinals named Carlos Martinez, who's a pitcher. And in your little paragraph about it, you mentioned how he's a Dominican Republic guy. He had signed with the Red Sox in 2009. The deal was voided because of incomplete documentation. My friend Hench emailed me after this column went up. He was like, all right, what the hell just happened with this? Why is this the first I'm hearing of this? And both of us were like, we follow baseball. How do we not know about this?
Yeah.
What happened with this?
It was an identity thing. It was a question over his identity, and there was his identity paperwork just did not pass muster with MLB, and so they voided the deal. The commissioner's office forced the Red Sox to void the deal. And the Red Sox had signed him for, I think, less than he ended up getting from the Cardinals. He got his paperwork in order and then signed with the Cardinals. And the next thing you know, I'm hearing reports from their fall instructional league down there that, like, hey, they got this kid named Martinez who's hitting 100. And, I hear that, and typically I'm like, all right, that's, you always hear that. Oh, he hit 100. It's the easiest thing to say, but very few guys actually do hit 100. But then, I still juiced him on the off-season rankings. He was somewhere around 50 or so because, I had some independent reports outside the Cardinal system that the arm was pretty electric, and I saw some video of him. Then this spring I'm talking to guys who see him in the Midwest League, and there's 2 guys they're talking about. The other, Taijuan Walker with the Mariners is one, and then Martinez is the other. And I'm getting reports. Yeah, he's legitimately 96 to 100 for 7 innings. And it's a plus breaking ball, and he can turn over a changeup, and they're comping him to Pedro Martinez. It's pretty ridiculous. If he was a couple inches taller, it's really the only negative. He's not a big physical. He's not built like Halladay. He's slight, and he's about 6 feet or so. But the arm works great. And it's just easy velocity. And, if he's holding that velocity for 7 innings, what's the drawback? It's a potential number 1 starter.
People always ask me if the fact that the Red Sox won in 04 and 07 has, was it more fun to be a Red Sox fan when you had this hope, okay, someday we're going to win it? Were you more invested, all that stuff? This is the flip side. If the Red Sox had never won in 04 and 07, and then you read about this Carlos Martinez guy, it, ruins my month. But now it's all right, you win some, you lose some. We won 2 titles. You just look at these things differently. But let's talk about the Yankees for a second. The 2 guys that keep getting bandied about, with because obviously they're going to make a move, and they have to get a pitcher, I think. But Manny Banuelos and Jesus Montero, who was almost in the Cliff Lee deal last year. Yeah. And that was a pretty good fork in the road because I can't remember if they wouldn't put him in or they didn't put him in until the last minute.
I think he was in, and Seattle, the story from the New York camp was basically Seattle accepted the deal and then shopped it around and got a better offer from Texas with Justin Smoke. And, who knows? It's he said, she said, but this is the story I've heard most often. So then went back. The Yankees thought they had a deal, and then Seattle called back and said, no, we don't have a deal. We're sending him somewhere else.
You know what? I heard that too, and they want Eduardo Nunez?
Which is
and they were like, you throw him in, it's done.
Who is basically an extra infielder.
Yeah.
But I'm still not getting the Eduardo Nunez height. But he's an extra.
What I think it was, here's what I think happened, because this happens in the League of Dorks. If you think you have a deal with somebody and then they shop it around, it's like you go into FU mode. Well, fine, go do it with the other guy.
Right.
I think the Yankees were probably just insulted. They thought they had something. But this was the rare deal where everybody lost, because the Yankees would have won the World Series last year with Cliff Lee. The Mariners settle on Justin Smoke, who's really kind of been a disaster the last couple of months.
He's not healthy. My opinion is that he's not healthy. He's had a thumb injury for about a month now, which is basically his father passed away suddenly at the beginning of June. He leaves for that just as his bat is really getting going. He was back for a week and a half, then he hurts his thumb. So he can't grip the bat. I don't know if obviously father passing away suddenly is traumatic. That may also be affecting him. I feel like I'm just kind of want to write the year off. Is he still talented? Yeah, but this is a bad combination of events from a baseball perspective for him.
Right. All right, but back to Montero.
Yeah.
Who was, the number 1 catching prospect in baseball, and now people don't even know if he's a catcher. They seem to think he's a DH.
Right.
Which means I don't know why an NL team would even trade for him under that point, yet he's the guy that gets mentioned along with Banuelos. I talked about this on the podcast last week. Colorado is basically asking for the Godfather offer for Ubaldo Jimenez. Am I crazy, or do you just say sure? Do you give them Benuelos, Montero, and Betances? Sure, take all three of them. We'll take Jimenez, and now we have him under a cheap contract for the next couple of years. That solves every problem we have. Is that too much for him?
My concern on Jimenez, who got smacked around in his last start, again, is that the fastball is not what it was. I mean, I've seen him in the past. He legitimately sit like 95, 98, and now he's like a full grade below that. He's going to pitch more at 92, 95 or so, and he'll flash a little better. I don't know. I mean, I don't know that there's any evidence he's not healthy. It's not like he's missing starts, but guy loses that much off his fastball, I'm a little concerned. Now you got to get him across leagues too, to the AL East, which is a whole different caliber of baseball. But
does Coors Field negates that a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, if you can pitch successfully in Coors, it tells me a lot about your makeup, too. Not just the quality of your stuff, but you're not melting down. Because, in Coors, you make one mistake, somebody makes a mistake behind you, and the whole thing can unravel. Yeah. So you got to be tough enough to mentally sort of put that mistake aside and continue to attack hitters the same way. So, I mean, I think Jimenez keep comping him to A.J. Burnett, which I think is the stupidest thing. A.J. Burnett's big problem is his head, or his heart, whatever you want to call it. But Burnett, it's tremendous stuff and questionable makeup, mound makeup, not tough, not a smart pitcher, just gets away with really good stuff. Jimenez that's not his issue. The command isn't great, but no, I've never heard anyone question Jimenez's heart, mentality, aggressiveness. That's all there. If I'm the Yankees, that's the thing I like the most, is that I think this guy's tough. I feel like he's going to be able to come over and handle all the mental, emotional stuff, whatever it is in New York that causes some guys to go all Ed Whitson. I think Jimenez will be fine with that. And I wouldn't hesitate to trade Montero for a fully healthy Jimenez, because what the hell is Montero going to do in New York? He can only DH.
Yeah. Right?
He's not going to play first base. He can't catch. I don't think anybody outside the Yankees organization thinks that Jesus Montero can catch. So what's your plan? You have Teixeira locked up for the next 4 years.
So he's Billy Butler. He's basically a better Billy Butler.
He's got power that Butler has never developed. But yes, I mean, Montero is built like Frank Thomas. I mean, if Montero went to Coors Field and could fake first base enough to get 500 at-bats, I'm sure he'd hit 35 home runs. Oh. Well, but you got to have a place for him to play. And I don't see that the Yankees have a place if they're not going to let him DH.
Well, then, so that brings me to my next question is, do you just offer everybody you have for Felix?
Oh, I wouldn't hesitate to do that. I know Felix doesn't have the win total this year, and so what? I mean, Felix is elite for me. And, yeah, I would offer – I'd tell the Mariners, pick three. Pick three, and we'll give you even a throw-in from A-ball. I mean, you go trade – because all those guys have risk. I love Banuelos. He's got risk. Betances, I can't tell you how many – I've seen Betances. He's not a great athlete. He doesn't command the fastball. It's huge stuff. Up to 97. He's got a better breaking ball than I've seen from him, just based on what other scouts have told me. But I know scouts who think he's going to end up in the bullpen because he doesn't command it, can't repeat his delivery. There's risk. There's risk in Benuelos. There's huge risk on Montero that we talked about. Add up the risk across those three guys. What's the risk on Felix? It's basically regular pitcher getting hurt risk. But you also know this guy's one of the top 5 pitchers in the league. You don't get a lot of opportunities to get a guy like that.
Betances jumped in your rankings as the season went along. Like
because
he top 35.
Results are better this year. Guys who last year were telling me pen guy or back-end starter are saying, well, better chance that he's somewhere in the middle of a rotation now. Can't become a better athlete, but you can improve your command just by learning to repeat your delivery better.
Right. So, all right, let's say I'm the Mariners. My team's hitting about 180. Mm-hmm. I have Dustin Ackley, who within a week was my number 3 hitter. Because I have nobody else. I can't even imagine being a Mariners fan. I just watched them all weekend. They're just a catastrophe.
Yes.
You have Pineda, who now has hit the wall, which you knew was going to happen, but it still hurts to see.
I mean, and he was really good. Way better than I expected in the first half.
You have Ichiro, who I think has like a 620 OPS.
Yeah.
What is the point of keeping Felix Hernandez on this team? I know he's only 25, or we think he's 25, and I know you have him under contract for the next couple of years, but I don't think there's anything sadder than seeing like one of the best 5 or 6 pitchers in all of baseball just waste their way in this terrible team.
Right.
I would trade him.
And what's your best path? If you're sitting in the GM chair there, what's your best path to making your team relevant again? They don't have enough bats in the system that this offense is going to turn itself around organically. You have to trade somebody somewhere, and Sean Figgins ain't going to do it. So,
do you think maybe they're gun shy a little bit from the Cliff Lee trade?
Well, I would have to imagine, the risk to a GM, and the GM there, Zaremchuk, was already in hot water last year. Remember in the Lee trade, the Luecki thing, and I don't know if you remember the story. He's a rapist, essentially.
Right.
Accused of rape. I think he pled out to a lesser charge. But basically, ownership didn't know they were acquiring this guy with a criminal record. And Zaremchuk didn't know. Zaremchuk's own people did not actually tell him the whole story. And Zaremchuk nearly got fired. He ended up having to fire one of his top lieutenants to appease ownership. So he kind of came into the year with one red flag on him, and now they stink for the second year in a row. So if you're Zaremchuk and you trade Hernandez, the consequences for you are enormous. If it even looks at the beginning like it's going south, you could lose your job. So that's a move for a GM who's a lot more secure in his position. That may be the biggest issue of all. It's not that they're concerned about not getting value in return, but concerned about if this doesn't look good right away. You might go to another team and say, we'll give you Felix, but we need a player who comes right to our major league roster so that we can show fans and ownership immediately we did get value for trading away the best, most valuable player we have on the roster.
You just described why being a sports fan sucks, because sometimes you're just held hostage by the people who make the decisions for you, or people who have personal agendas and not agendas for the franchise as a whole. And if you're making that Felix trade, that's a trade that you're making for 2015 and 2016, not 2011. Right. And as you said, that guy doesn't know if he's going to be there in October.
That moral hazard is a huge problem in baseball. You could speak to other sports better than I could, but it becomes a problem all over the place in baseball. If you're Houston, Houston's ownership is going to change at some point, probably in August now. But because the new owners haven't taken over, the old GM is still in place. So if you're the new owners, or if you're an Astros fan waiting for the new owners, do you really want Ed Wade, who's basically a lame duck GM, trading Hunter Pence or Wandy Rodriguez? No, you want the new GM to do it. But Wade, on the other hand, has every incentive to try to make a trade and do something wonderful and maybe try to save his job, convince the new owners, no, you should keep me after all. That's not in the best interest of the franchise either.
So the Yankees, they need to do something, because they also have Gary Sanchez, who's another good catching prospect. It makes no sense to have Montero and him. So they'll make some sort of trade. What do you see them doing? Like, who do you see going? Where do you see them going?
If they do nothing, they're still going to the playoffs, right? So it's just about setting yourself up better for October. And I think the one thing that could make a difference for them would be to get another pitcher good enough to start a playoff game for them. That's what I would go into it with. If we're not getting a pitcher who's good enough to be our third starter in the playoffs, we're not making a move. So aim high, and somebody comes to you with the second tier. So you're not doing Wandy Rodriguez. That doesn't make any sense for the Yankees.
Yeah, the guy needs to start game 3.
Right.
Of whatever their first series is.
You need somebody who's actually good enough to do that. You're facing Texas in the first round. You're facing Boston in the second round. You need somebody who's actually good enough to make that. So who might be starting game 3 and game 7 in a 7-game series. That's a really high standard for them, which is not a bad position to be in, because if you're Cashman, you just don't take a lot of calls. You don't have anybody who fits what I need. Don't bother me.
So who are those candidates then?
Well, I mean, I don't get the sense that Felix is actually on the trade market now. He would certainly be ideal. If Jimenez is healthy, and I have not seen him personally in this 7-8 start run of trouble he's had, so I can't tell you what exactly is wrong. But I mean, if the Yankees have seen him, I'm sure they have, and feel confident in him, he'd be ideal. I mean, you could certainly roll him out there, and I think he's good enough and smart enough to pitch at 92, 95. It's more like, is this guy going to break down? Is he losing velocity because there's actually something physically wrong? But he would be a tremendous fit. Those might be the only guys at that level who I know are available.
Yeah.
Right now.
Slim pickings.
Yeah.
Then you look at a team like Texas that everybody thought, my God, they're going to have to trade. They don't have enough starters. And then now you look at their team. Ogando, C.J. Wilson. Matt
Yeah.
Harrison's been like a revelation. Colby Lewis, he's been as good. If he's your fourth starter, you're doing pretty well. I even like Derek Holland. He's been coming out.
Holland has
lately.
number 2 starter stuff. It's
Yeah.
like, I mean, he looks like, I mean, it's a couple of starts. I hate to overreact, but maybe he's turning that corner now.
And then they have in AAA Martin Perez, who's your
Yeah.
number 10 prospect. But they're kind of frightening because I don't even know if they need to make a move. But if they make a move, they do have a couple arms they could do. They have a lot of different options. I think they're the most intriguing team in terms of they could go in a lot of different directions, and they might just stand pat. I don't even know if they're going to do anything.
Right. Well, like you said, calling up Perez. I know that the GM was going down to see Perez's last start in AAA last week, which I have to assume they're not trading him. That's probably, let me go down and see how ready he is in case we need another starter.
Well, he's on my
I saw
team.
Perez
I
in
think
spring training. I saw him again at the Futures game. The stuff is there. The command is getting better. Command's been an issue for him. He's very young. But I always love to see a guy that young, even last year, who knows how to turn over a changeup.
Yeah.
He's
on my team partially thanks to you. I think you recommended him. But I think it's really fun. This is one of the things that I think makes fantasy baseball so much more fun in 2011 than it was probably 15 years ago. You can actually follow these guys online.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can go. I know every start Martin Perez is doing. I Google him every 3-4 days just to make sure he's all right. It's amazing how you can keep track of everybody.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, that's my job would not have existed 10 years ago.
No.
You know, couldn't find. There wasn't interest. Wasn't enough interest. There was always some interest. There was not enough interest. The info wasn't out there as much. The ability to get video, to shoot video, to show video to readers. And you know what the other thing is? Text messages has absolutely changed the job. Because
Really?
I can get text or send text. I mean, scouts are at a game, or I'm at a game. I can send texts out. I can get texts from guys. You're not bothering somebody. It's a lot harder when all you had was the phone. No, even no cell phones. How do you reach a guy? But now everybody. I mean, if you're a scout, you text. If you're a front office executive, you text. It's just part of the. It's how a lot of business is done.
It makes you wonder, like, I know we said this about everything, but it makes you wonder, like, how they did stuff in, like, 1973.
Yeah.
With none of this stuff, like telegrams.
Right, exactly. You send a guy a contract offer, and a week later he responds.
So I think the Rangers, I don't see them really doing anything unless Beltre turns out to be out for much longer than just the 15-day DL stint, because you knew he was going to break down at some point. It finally happened. The Red Sox could go in a few different directions here. People want them to get an outfielder, and then there's another camp. No, we're good with Josh Reddick. Then people are like, well, no, we got to get a 4th starter for the playoffs. And then you watch Lackey sometimes, and you think, well, maybe he could be the 4th starter. We're already paying him a gajillion dollars a year.
Right.
And the other problem is they don't really have a lot of prospects to trade. They're surprisingly barren for a team that has spent so much money on high schoolers and in the Far East, stuff like that. What do you see them doing?
Yeah, their problem is those prospects, a lot of them are too far. They're good, but they're too far away. You're not putting Brandon Jacobs as the lead guy in a trade.
Yep.
Xander Bogaerts, who might, he could be in my top 50 in a year or so. He's not the lead guy in a trade. They're too far away for them to potentially do something. What I have heard, that's one of the few clubs I've really heard some stuff on, it's that they're being typically CO-esque, opportunistic. They're in on a lot of guys and waiting to see who they might get for what they consider below market value. Like they're hanging around on Beltran. And if Beltran to the Phillies doesn't work out, and the Mets just decide, well, we're going to trade Beltran for anything because we can't get a draft pick for him at the end of the year, the Red Sox are sitting there and they'll try to get the guy for 60 cents on the dollar. And so I expect that's what they'll end up. They're going to end up making a deal where we look and say, you know what? They didn't give up very much to get that guy.
Well, they also had the problem in the Gonzalez trade. They gave up probably their 2 biggest trade chips.
Oh, yeah.
And there's not,
And their
really
best guy at AAA right now is the Lavarnway kid, a catcher who can't really catch. And so it's the Montero problem. What do you do? I don't care how well Lavarnway hits at AAA. If other clubs look at him and say DH, he has very little trade value.
I just found out about this guy's stats, 10 days ago. First of all, his OPS in AAA is 1.2 right now.
He's on fire.
Killing the ball. So I asked my dad about it last week. I was like, have you heard of this catcher we have from Yale who's in AAA? He's killing it. He's like, are you kidding? Lavarnway? I follow him in the box scores. I've been following him forever. I'm on the bandwagon. But, as you said, he's an offensive catcher, but when you're putting up, I think he's got like 26 or 27 homers in the minors already, but it seems like somebody we might hear from this year.
Oh, he is a big leaguer. There's no question he plays in the big leagues. And maybe he hits enough that he's actually an above-average DH, which would mean I've underranked him. The catcher who can't catch phenomenon frightens me because there are a lot of those guys, and very few of them transition to other positions. Montero is a bit of an exception because he was raking at age 19 and 20 in the upper minors. Varnway is a couple years older than that.
Right.
But if the Red Sox suddenly had a hole at DH or needed a guy who could catch once a week, I'm sure he'll be up. If they don't trade him, and I don't see him having a lot of trade value, he's got to come up in September. An extra bat off the bench, a guy who could fake catcher maybe once a week for you. Yeah, absolutely. That's an ideal September call-up.
According to Baseball Cube, he's played 31 games in AAA so far, 381, 451 on base, 729 slugging, 10 homers. I mean, that's beyond being on fire. I mean, he's actually he's a human inferno. I'd like to see him. Plus Yale. When's the last time there's been a Yale anything?
Ron Darling? It's been a while.
Yeah.
I was actually accused, you probably saw this on Twitter, I was accused of underrating LaVarnway because he went to Yale and I went to their rival.
Oh, a little bit Ivy bias. I like
How about that one? I've been accused of a lot of kinds of bias. That might be the dumbest one yet.
Or the smartest one, depending on how you guys do hate each other.
Harvard, I've never even been to what they call pompously referred to as the game, the annual Harvard-Yale football game, which is supposed to be a big deal. Really? I don't care. I don't even know who won last year.
His stats at Yale were kind of incredible.
Oh, yeah.
His sophomore year, he hit 467, 873 slugging, and 14 homers.
He was clearly the best player in the problem with the Ivy League baseball is terrible. On balance, it's bad. And they don't typically even play good non-conference schedules. So
I'd like to see him.
Once every couple of years, we have an Ivy League prospect.
Let's talk about the Pirates, because obviously they're loaded because they've been making draft picks forever, and now there's rumors. They survived last week. I think there's a feeling maybe last week was the week that would knock them out of contention. It didn't. They're in on the Beltran thing. What would you give up if you're the Pirates GM for Beltran?
I will be honest. If I'm the Pirates, I do as little as possible because I don't think they're going to stay in this. They got a road trip coming up against Atlanta and Philly now, and they'll be lucky to come out of this close to first place. I think you can't sacrifice. I mean, they've been building this for 4 or 5 years now. You can't give away anything in pursuit of a run this year because I think you short-circuit what you've been working towards for all this time. I mean, all this losing had a point the last couple of years. You're accumulating high draft picks, and they have spent. They have been their ownership gets criticized so much for not spending. They've spent a ton in the draft to try to stock that system. And I would hate to see them go out and make a major move, give away any elite prospect from their system or even a good young player from the big league roster just to try to make a run this year. Because I don't think they'll get into the playoffs. Even if they get into the playoffs, I think they get waxed in the first round. No. You're building towards championships. Don't give up on that. Now, that said, I think they probably make a move to satisfy the fans, but it'll be for an extra piece. People keep saying Carlos Pena. He wouldn't be a bad fit for them. And I don't think they'd have to give up much to get him.
Well, I mean, we're going through all these contenders here. Somebody's got to be a panic move team. Who's the panic move team this year? Out of the contenders. The White Sox. Well, they're 4.5 back. You think they'd make a panic move where they trade prospects?
I think they're going to do something. I think they're motivated to do something because they were all in at the start of the year.
Yeah.
And they're playing better. They're not playing great, but nobody in the division's playing great. Even Detroit, who are in first place, they're not great.
Yeah.
I feel like the White Sox are definitely in position to hurry up and do something. I think Arizona's going to be really aggressive, but that's not so much panic move, but just because Kevin Towers is aggressive. And they're not his prospects. That's the other thing. He's the new GM. And so he wasn't responsible for getting any of these prospects into the system. He doesn't have any emotional attachment to Skaggs or Jared Parker or Matt Davidson. And they've got a lot of guys, actually. They've got quite a few assets to do something with.
Yeah. Well, maybe I'm looking. I guess Milwaukee, you could argue that they're kind of all in a little bit because they traded Brett Lowry. before the season.
Yep, and they do have, they've had some guys step up this year. Willie Peralta's been better this year. Tyler Thornburg, who was in the Futures game, he's been a little better than expected this year. He's only in high A, but he's a college guy who's probably could. If you stick Thornburg in the pen, I think you could put him in the big leagues right now. So they've got a few guys to trade, and they've made it very clear they're all in at this point. I think they'll go out and they got to get somebody for the left side of their infield. Betancourt and McGehee might as well put out 2-pointed sticks, and it's like, all right, if the ball hits the stick, you're out. Otherwise, it's a hit.
The team, the most interesting seller, in my opinion, is the Tampa Bay Rays.
Absolutely.
Because B.J. Upton's like a real chess piece. And we're at the point now where it doesn't make a ton of sense for them to have him, especially because Jennings came up. He had a good start, all that stuff.
Right.
So who needs him the most, and where do you see him going?
I keep hearing Philly and Washington, which isn't to say there aren't others. Those are just the two I keep hearing.
Washington
loves him.
Why?
Loves him. Looking for that, center fielder, locked in center fielder for the next couple of years. They love those sort of high upside athletic types, especially if there's a hint of an underperformer. He'll come to us and he'll take that step forward. I'm not sure how Washington puts together that offer. That's the only thing. I mean, they've got guys in the system, but it's the best guy left in the system is probably A.J. Cole, and I got the sense he's probably untouchable. He's a teenage pitcher anyway. I think Philly's better positioned and more motivated to do a deal.
And they actually need him.
Because they're actually going
they need one more bet. Yeah. So those are the only two.
Those are the two
like
I've heard.
Dark horse, like Arizona, maybe.
It's interesting, right? Because you get the brothers together.
Got to get the brothers together. I'm all for the brothers. I don't know why teams don't do that more often. You got to get the brothers together.
Oh, it would be. It's too bad there's not a third. You get the all Upton outfield.
Totally.
Lose, right?
Totally.
Where do you put Upton in Arizona? You put him in left. Got to leave Chris Young in center, right? He's good. I mean, he's pretty good defensive center fielder.
Yeah, you do. Here's why I like the brothers, because Upton's a guy that's definitely been a little up and down. No pun intended. But you have the two brothers together. You get a little natural competitiveness going. I just think you get the most out of them that you're going to get separately if they weren't playing together. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah. I mean, I don't know BJ personally, and I've only talked to Justin Upton once, who denied that there was a big. I asked him, was there much of a rivalry? He was on our podcast a couple weeks ago. Was there much of a rivalry between you and BJ in high school? He said they were enough years apart that it wasn't a big deal. Of course,
yeah,
the big
that's
leagues,
BS.
Very different. Yeah, that's the other thing. Well, I'm sure it may have been more of a rivalry for him too.
Yeah.
Seeing your brother who's 3 years older, it's saying I want to be better than he is. He's getting all the accolades. He's the second pick in the draft. I'm going to be the first pick in the draft, which he was actually. Yeah. So if that's true, that worked out.
I think that's the best place for B.J. Upton, because now he's going to his brother's franchise basically. He's not as good as his brother, and it gives him a little kick in the butt every day. I got to beat this guy.
He's got a lot of untapped ability, too.
I agree.
His performance the last couple of years, he might be one of the bigger disappointments relative to the scouting reports of any hitter in baseball, or at least in the American League. He should be a star.
Yeah,
I
remember
not close to it.
The 08 playoffs was just terrifying against the Red Sox.
Oh, yeah.
Just terrifying. So it's in there somewhere. It's lurking.
And maybe the shoulder held him back, but, we should be past that. He should be past that now.
You'd think. I know that he's a little bit of a polarizing figure in Tampa, but he's got like huge fans there too.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's some others who don't thinks he mails it in, but it might be good for him to get out of there anyway. Get a fresh start. Washington.
And send him to the National League. Any player going from the AL to the NL, I'd expect to tick up in the performance too.
If let's say Beltran goes to the Red Sox, and all of a sudden he's just batting seventh in that lineup with guys coming on base all the time, he could really have a monster last 2 months if he went to the right team. I think Boston's the best case scenario. What other team do you just think he would thrive on?
Philadelphia. I don't know. It sounds like the Mets will make that trade within the division. A lot of GMs don't want to do that, but I don't think the Mets care. I don't know, if I'm the Mets, if I can get a prospect from my most direct rival, sure, why not? Philly, again, they're more motivated to do this, whereas Boston, and I've heard the Pittsburgh rumors that you've heard also, but I think the Red Sox are kind of sitting there saying, well, if Beltran doesn't go to the Phillies or the Rangers, or the Pirates, call us, and we'll give you something. We're not going to give you as much as those clubs are, but we'll give you something. But I think as long as Beltran's healthy, he performs when he's healthy. He's just not often healthy, but it seems like he's healthy right now.
It's pretty ironic that I think the Red Sox spent something like $23 million on J.D. Drew and Mike Cameron, and yet they're in the outfield trading sweepstakes. But Heath Bell, most interesting available closer / setup guy out there, right?
Oh yeah, and has to be traded. I mean, they would be insane to keep him at this point.
When you say has to be traded, explain the whole draft pick thing to me, because sometimes it feels like you're just better off keeping the guy and getting the draft picks. But is he a type A or a type B?
He'll be a type A because of all the saves. Saves almost guarantee that it's not 100%, but a guy with high save totals is probably going to be a type A.
Well, then if you're a contender, then I mean, isn't it worth even overpaying for him a little bit? Because at least you're getting the 2+ months from him, plus you're getting the draft picks.
Yes, I think it makes more sense for the contender than it does for the team to keep him. Because my mentality on keeping the player just for the draft picks, the Blue Jays screwed this up with Burnett, where they refused to trade him because they were good that year, not quite good enough, but they thought too good to trade him. This was before Anthopoulos was GM. And, well, we'll just get the draft picks. And then Burnett signs with the Yankees, who also signed Sabathia and Teixeira. So what did the Blue Jays get? A sandwich round pick, which is good, and the Yankees' 3rd round pick, because the first pick went for Teixeira, and the second pick went for Sabathia. So the Blue Jays ended up at the back of the queue. And the other problem with the draft picks, obviously I cover the draft. I love the draft. But realistically, if you lose a free agent this offseason, you get draft picks in next June's draft who will sign next August and may not make their full season debut until 2013. And if it's a high school kid, that guy might get to the big leagues in 2017 or 2018. Whereas if you could trade Heath Bell now for one prospect, good prospect in Double-A, he's going to get to the big leagues that much faster. Maybe it's not quite as good as the guy you were going to draft next year, but he's lower risk because he's that much closer, and he's in pro ball and he's signed. All of that extra time just goes away. So I'd be much more motivated, especially a reliever, be much more motivated to trade that guy because relievers are so volatile. They blow out, they lose their performance, it takes nothing. So, I mean, I think they should trade Bell. I think they should trade Mike Adams, who they say they're not going to trade. But it's a middle reliever. He's good today, gone tomorrow.
I couldn't help but notice in your latest top 50 that the Cardinals had number 3 and number 4, both pitchers, Shelby Miller and Martinez. We discussed him earlier. They wouldn't put either of those guys on the table, right?
No, I think those guys are off limits. And Zach Cox, who was their first pick last year, third baseman in Double-A, I'm guessing, just guessing, is probably also off limits. I mean, obviously they're talking Colby Rasmus.
Yeah.
Our Chicago guys have reported that a bit. They've got a bunch of other arms: Jordan Swaggerty, Trevor Rosenthal, Tyrell Jenkins. These are guys in the low minors who are pretty valuable. If I'd gone to 100, you would have seen, well, Jenkins was on there, but I mean, Swaggerty, the only issue with Swaggerty, they've just slowed him down because he's a college reliever who they've made into this pretty good 4-pitch starter. They've got quite a bit of inventory to go make a deal without having to trade Miller or Martinez.
And the Tigers have Jacob Turner, who's
got to be starter. I mean, I can't believe this guy hasn't been called up. And I'm not usually the advocate of rush the kid to the big leagues, but he's better than Charlie Furbush. He's better than Dwayne Below. They got a low standard in the rotation right now, and Turner could accidentally come up and go 6 innings and strike out 8 guys. It's number 1 starter stuff. And he throws a ton of strikes.
Matt Moore, Tampa,
he is
number
ridiculous.
2 overall.
I don't know if you saw a futures game. He's nuts. I mean, that is obscene stuff from the left side. From a guy he's listed at like 6'2", and I think he's probably about 5'10", 5'11". But that is as easy a 98 as you're going to see, and a plus breaking ball and a good changeup. And he struck out something like 230 batters in the last 52 weeks.
And he's lefty.
He's lefty.
You moved him up. He was number 16 before the season. Now he's number 2. So obviously he's
control. Really, the only issue for him was just throwing strikes, throwing quality strikes. He's doing that in spades.
And then Tampa had another guy who moved up, the shortstop, Ha-Chu Lee.
Yeah, I love him. Personal
7.
favorite. But I think an elite defensive shortstop who can run. So it's a little bit of a flat swing. He's not going to have power. Might be a 10 home run guy. But I think he's going to hit for average, get on base, steal a bunch of bags, play elite defense at short.
I mean, he's basically, him and Jerks and Profar, kind of cut from similar cloths, but Lee is a solid year closer to the big leagues.
And Profar's on the Rangers for the uninitiated. They're kind of loaded too. There's some teams. Tampa, if they trade B.J. Upton for the right kind of package, they're right back to where they were in like 05, 06, but with a slightly better big league team. But from the same kind of just loaded.
12 of the top 72 picks in the draft.
Right.
So they are. Yeah. I mean, to me, now that Kansas City has essentially graduated Hosmer, Moustakas, Duffy, these guys are in the big leagues. Tampa's got the best farm system. Just because Kansas City lost 3 of their best guys.
So you would have Tampa 1. Who would you have like 2, 3, 4?
2 is Toronto, which also they just spent. They are loaded. But the one thing I'll say is, if Drabek isn't the guy, I don't know that there's like a number 1 starter prospect. There's no Matt Moore in the Toronto system, but they got a slew of guys who were 2s and 3s: Henderson Alvarez and Drew Hutchinson and Aaron Sanchez, Justin Nicolino, Nestor Molina. I mean, this is a long list of guys. They have loaded up on high school arms and arms in Latin America. I think they've got more total inventory than Kansas City. Not that Kansas City's bad, but 3 guys in the big leagues. Montgomery struggled. John Lamb blew his elbow out. Hasn't been a great year for Kansas City. But they're still, I'd say, they're probably still third. And then there's a drop off before you get to maybe Atlanta as the next one.
So with the Red Sox, they gave away Casey Kelly and Rizzo in the Gonzalez trade. They lost Ryan Westmoreland. So arguably they would have been their 3 best prospects had circumstances been different for this year. Then you look at the whole farm system as a whole, for the amount of money they've spent, the amount of attention they've put on it. Is it right that I feel a little disappointed?
They've traded a lot. They had a couple of guys not quite pan out, and they've got a lot of their depth now is in A-ball. I mean, I saw their AA club a couple weeks ago. It's about a month ago, I guess. Probably right after Levonway was promoted. It was pretty thin. But they're strong at the A-ball level. I mean, they're somewhere in the probably low teens if I was ranking them out. I mean, them versus the Yankees would be an interesting debate. Who's actually got the better system? Red Sox have more depth. Yankees have more top-end talent. But what's clear is both of them are a lot better than Baltimore, and both of them are way behind Tampa Bay and Toronto.
Yeah. So when you go on these trips, do you try to hit you say, I'm going to go away for 6 days, I'm going to try to hit 8 games? Do you sketch it out, or is it just more on a whim?
I try to be opportunistic, in and out. This guy's pitching, here's a good pitching matchup, go in, 1 game, get out. Because since I'm really just covering the sort of the top tier of guys, it's hard to go somewhere, park yourself somewhere, and do that for 5 or 6 days. Now, if I was a pro scout, I mean, that's what they do. They go sit on a team for 5 days because they're responsible for writing up every player on the roster. And that's why I focus. I always do futures game. Now I live in Arizona, but I would always spend a solid week in the Arizona Fall League because then you can clean up a lot of above-average prospects in one shot. And then what I try to do with these trips is, all right, here's a guy. Went to see Leonis Martin in Round Rock because I'd never seen him, and he might not come to Fall League because he might be in the big leagues. So let me make sure I get in and see this guy immediately before he escapes me entirely.
Is it true that you just walk around 24 hours a day with a radar gun, or no? That's a rumor I heard.
More of a stopwatch. Yeah. I do. I do use a radar gun now. What's that?
You do or you don't?
I have a radar gun. Yeah.
You do? Where do you buy a radar gun?
Oh, it's you buy them online. I use Stalker as the industry standard brand, so it's the same one that the scouts use. Depending on where I am, there's some parks where, like at Fenway, they're plugged into Pitch FX. I think they are here in Arizona also, so I don't bother because I know it's accurate. But there are some stadiums where the gun on the scoreboard is a kid with a Jugs radar gun, which is not the industry standard model. So that's where I'll use my own. Or especially at a high school game, college game, you want to have your own gun because there might not be any standard reading.
And what is your absolute favorite minor league ballpark to go to? What do you think is the number one minor league experience?
It's a good question. I do love the park in Portland, Maine. I love the fake, basically that they mocked up Fenway. Not that I'm not a Red Sox fan, but I like the fact that they tried to mimic the Fenway experience in a minor league park.
Interesting.
Now, I have not been to...
What about West Coast?
What's that?
West Coast.
I haven't been to many California League parks because I've only lived out here for a year.
Yeah.
I will say best spring training park, which is sort of minor league-esque, is the new one, the Diamondbacks Rockies facility here in Scottsdale, which just opened this year at Talking Stick, is absolutely insane. The nicest spring training. It's nicer than some big league stadiums. It is absolutely ridiculous and justifiably jammed every game, because there's a game every day. Every game this spring was packed.
I won't ask you about the nicest college baseball park because I already know the answer. Pepperdine? Yeah, has to be.
Oh, yeah. How did they not have the best team in the country every year?
It's inexplicable.
Best recruiting trip ever, right?
They should have, first of all, they should have an unbelievable basketball team.
Mm-hmm.
They should have an unbelievable baseball team, and they should dominate, like, with water polo, all those sports. Like, yeah, they're failing. Something's going wrong with that.
I was there this spring, and not even to see a Pepperdine player, to see a player from Coastal Carolina was actually playing up there. And I'm sitting there like, I should have gone to school here. The hell was it? Harvard? Totally overrated. The hell was I doing?
It was the opposite of my Holy Cross experience, which was also on a hill.
You didn't surf much at Holy Cross?
We were on a hill, but we looked over the I-290 ramp instead of the Pacific Ocean and a cliff and all that stuff. They also have...
Worcester is so scenic.
They have the nicest Little League park on the planet. I would put it against anything. You could not come up with a better Little League park. It's like right in the bottom of Pepperdine's campus, basically. But it's like right on the edge of the cliff. And you know, it's like you have the ocean breeze coming in. It's insane. A little different than my Massachusetts Little League experience.
Right.
But yeah, I would put that number one. I don't even know.
Yeah, I need to scout at Pepperdine more often. I'll be checking their visitor schedule frequently.
Yeah, rich Pepperdine alumni guys, you're all failing. Your team should be dominating. Your school should be dominating in all sports. Last question.
Yeah.
Let's say my friend Mendelson, who still buys baseball cards, even though he's like 44. Is there a guy who is an up-and-comer who people haven't totally got excited about yet that you feel like in about a month it's going to be like a Matt Moore type situation?
We mentioned Lee, mentioned Profar. Bogart's in that Red Sox system, Bogaerts. I think he's actually from Aruba. Profar's from Curacao. Jonathan Scope, spelled Shoop, Schoop, from Curacao. Also, he's in the Baltimore system. I don't know. Does Manny Machado qualify as under the radar? If you don't follow the draft, you might not be on him yet. I think I've always said he's A-Rod light. He gets compared to A-Rod because he looks like him. Shortstop, right-handed hitter, power from the same neck of the woods. I wouldn't call anybody the next A-Rod, but I think Machado's a superstar. And I think he stays at shortstop. He's already made strides defensively. That's an elite play. That kind of bat at shortstop is an all-star, no doubt.
It's funny, we had the number one pick in the League of Dorks, and we took Zach Britton over Machado because I was worried that Machado was he looked better than he was because the draft wasn't that great.
Draft sucked last year. Yeah, you're being
I was wrong. Yeah, it was a bad pick. And Zach Britton's like in Double-A. He's probably looking like Ron Burgundy and Anchorman with the beard, drinking milk on the hot day, wondering what happened. What happened to Zach Britton?
Yeah. At least Britton hasn't lost his fastball, right? How many Baltimore guys? Mattis lost his fastball. Tillman lost his fastball. Yeah. And then a bunch of guys in the minors, Hobgood, Irby. Even Arrieta's velocity's been dipping a little bit. At least Britton, the stuff is intact. I almost feel like they were better off getting him out of there. That big league club is such a train wreck right now.
Yeah.
Just let Britton go back to the minors. I know he was pissed, but you know what, Zach? You'll be fine. You'll be back at some point, but let us sort this stuff out without you right now.
Yeah, if you're a lefty who's got a good fastball and you have a sinker like that, I think eventually you're going to be fine. What they need to do is put the right kind of team behind him.
Yeah, and they didn't have
if you're a sinker baller and your defense isn't very good, that's not a good
Mark Reynolds is a butcher at third base.
Yeah.
Like, you cannot put ground ball guys on the mound and him at third, and then it's revolving door at second base. Hardy's good. They've got one really good defender behind it. But, a ground ball pitcher, you want a young ground ball pitcher to be successful. You'd like to have better infield defense than what they could offer Britton.
Yeah. Well, Zach, if you're listening, hang in there, buddy. We're waiting for you in the big leagues again. Keith Law, I look forward to your next power rankings. I think you should do it every other week, just for me.
I know my editors would like that.
How hard would it be to move a couple paragraphs around?
I know.
You could do the .0 thing like Chad Ford does. Chad Ford does 7 mock drafts in 2 weeks. Just keep adding .0s to it. 15.0.
Right.
And we could check you out on ESPN Insider. You're on the baseball podcast too, right?
Yeah, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I'm on Baseball Today.
All right. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
So I get to sign off. Whoa!
Thank you for downloading the B.S. Report with Bill Simmons.
Too much fun.
Check out more podcasts at the iTunes Music Store or at Pod Center at ESPNradio.com.
Peace out.